Okay, Lewis, we're outside Stamford Bridge. Thanks for taking the time out.
To be back.
We haven't done a video like this before, not in pre-season or post-season, whatever you want to call it. Mate, in the past couple of days, a lot has happened. I just want to talk about it, mate. 'Cause I know I feel differently to you, so we're just going to get into it. First of all, how would you sum up Chelsea's season, and how do you feel about Chelsea at the moment?
It's a bittersweet feeling because, we managed to get top 6. We got into Europe. Yeah, we made a final for what it's worth, but our targets were top 4. Our targets were a trophy. We failed that. And from the way we ended the season, I think the players were capable of getting 4th. They were capable of winning a cup, in spite of all of the injuries, in spite of all of the other issues that we might have had this season. We had 1 game a week, we had a full pre-season with a manager, we didn't make the most of it. We were very, very wasteful, and we made so many mistakes tactically in the first half of the season. And that's basically what's cost us in the second half. So, yeah, bittersweet. I feel confident with the squad of players that we have, and we're going to add to them this summer as well. But we didn't reach the potential that we were meant to reach in our first season.
How are you supposed to reach your potential within 1 season? That's where I think we disagree, because there's all this talk that's been going on about a process, and we're going to go on to that in a second because Poch is gone. I didn't want Poch to come in. I made that clear before. I remember outside when we lost to Man City.
I was keen on it. I didn't mind.
That's mad. No, that is crazy. But he was in, and I was okay, cool. You've got all these young players. You're going to develop them. Seems like the perfect manager to do that. I think we can both agree that we know Poch is not a serial winner, but he has a track record, or he had a track record, of being able to progress teams, even with limited backing. And for me,
that's what annoyed me the most. He was meant to be doing youth development, barely saw any development through the season.
You don't think anyone developed?
We're talking about progression.
We did progress, Lewis. We did massively.
We compare it to last season, which is the worst Chelsea side, and
that's the whole point.
Half that squad weren't even there this season.
And on paper,
we improved on paper, so of course we were going to improve on the table. Our midfield got better, our attack got better. It's just our defence got worse, and defence is 75% structure. So that comes down to the coach. So that's where my problem is. Progression was to the bare minimum, below the bare minimum, because our target was 4th, and we were 5 points off 4th, so we could have reached that target. If only we didn't do a bunch of stupidness in games like Sheffield United, like Nottingham Forest, like defending against Bournemouth, Man United away, Everton away, the Wolves matches, the Brentford matches. These are all wheeled off the top of my head, and you don't even have to just improve all of them. Improve 3. Improve 3 of those results, and we've got 4th.
Okay. So this is my thing. I would say that a large percentage of the squad have developed under Poch. And when I say develop, I mean improved. Okay? Or settled in very nicely, which also is development.
Because we showed the structure in May, which also improves the players. Players get better when the structure is better.
Yeah, that's fair. But I mean, individual performances as well. I'm not even just talking about team performance. I think Petrovic settled in very well under Poch. I think Mark Cucurella has been much, much better than last season. Chalobah's developed.
He was going to be better than last season, though. He had a bunch of off-the-field issues. That's why I said give him a second season when everyone was onto him.
We've had a lot of issues, mate. I mean, Malagusto's developed. Alfie Gilchrist has been brought into the squad. I think we could agree.
Gusto had that quality, and Gilchrist. We're saying Gilchrist's improved, he's
been eased into the squad. That's my point. He was never part of Chelsea's squad until now.
We're going to say he's improved. That brother's had 2 starts and 4 bench appearances.
I'm just reading out the squad just to give you an idea. Now I will agree that I don't think Fernandes.
Jackson's improved.
I don't think Fernandes has improved under Poch because he's been injured. Now whether that was Poch's decision or his own decision, I don't know. Chukwuemeka for me would have been a fantastic player under Pochettino, but he's not been fit half the time. Gallagher
barely got opportunities anyway when he was fit.
I think that's because of his injuries. I think that's because Poch wanted to ease him in.
I mean, even stuff like off the bench, I've seen that guy just been left to rot for half the time. That's my thing. You could have talked about progression more if you got given more opportunities, but I don't think he did, even in spite of the injuries.
Yeah. I mean, generally, especially when you look up top, mate, Caicedo's definitely improved for me. I think he's been fantastic.
And made him look better because he still managed to look decent even when struggling at times in the first half of the season. It's because our structure was a mess and we had him defending 40 yards of space by himself, and we sent Enzo out to do second striker shifts. That's what made him look bad. As soon as the structure started to improve a little bit, as soon as we got Enzo a little bit close to him, and then Gallagher stopped doing the whole run off to right wing or left wing when you're playing in the pivot, he looks a lot better as a result.
You've got Jackson, who nobody can say that Pochettino hasn't improved Jackson. For me, he's probably one of the most improved players this season.
I'll give you Jackson.
And Cole Palmer as well. People talk about quality, but you have to nurture that ability. You have to nurture that.
No, because Palmer came in from the start and was producing good performance. I remember he would come off the bench when we were struggling in games and he just dropped 2 or 3 big chances.
You wouldn't give the manager any credit for that. You wouldn't give Pochettino anything.
Palmer came in with that quality and he showed it from the minute that he started getting regular starts. That's not a gradual improvement through the season. That's just him being a baller.
Yeah, but Pochettino, look, that's like saying, I don't know, there's lots of big players that have come to Chelsea and they haven't necessarily hit the ground running straight away. So is that just the player's fault? Is that not the manager's fault as well?
In what sense?
Well, if a player does well, the player gets credit for that. The manager should also get credit for it. Is it not the same vice versa if a player comes in and doesn't perform?
Now, I would agree, but then it also comes back down to the structure. We've said going forward, the whole thing is a mess and we seem to rely on individual brilliance half the time. So when we do that, I look at the individuals because they're the ones making something out of nothing. And that's been Cole Palmer through the entire season.
Fair enough. And then Mudryk and Madueke as well, who I think have improved. I think it's minute, but I do think it's an improvement.
I think Noni's improved, but he's also just got more minutes. And that was my biggest thing with him. Like, Noni could barely get game time to save his life first half of the season. We finally give him a run of starts and he starts to look good. I don't know if that's down to the manager or if it's just him being given a platform and he can finally show his ability. So, I don't know, maybe you want to give that to the manager, go for it. I don't mind, but I think it's more minutes.
Who gave him the minutes?
Poch.
No, that's my point.
But the minutes weren't there for him before, so we don't know what the quality was.
I mean, that's fair. That is fair. So let's get into what I really want to talk about. And that is the sacking of Pochettino, which I will say outright, it is a fucking disgrace. Now you think the opposite, and I'm glad we can talk about this. We can have a level-headed debate. For me, this is criminal. Any momentum that we had is gone. Any process that any fan believed in, or that we thought the owners believed in, or the sporting directors, is in the bin, and the players are upset. I mean, there is nothing for me that comes out of this where Chelsea can look at this situation and go, you know what, looking back, this was the right decision. Right now we're linked with championship standard managers. Half of the managers at the elite level we're not even speaking to. Forget whether they want to come to Chelsea. I think that's a load of crap. Pochettino was able to work with Daniel Levy for 5 years at Tottenham, and you can't fucking give him the smallest thing in the world. Just let him keep 1 or 2 players. Give him a little bit of control. Do you not think a manager deserves to have a say in the transfer market? Not necessarily conduct it, but just have a say.
Yes, but here's the thing that I don't understand, and I think the media have really done a number on Chelsea fans with this one. That's all that Chelsea were asking for. All they wanted was a manager that's going to just have a say and not try and dictate anything too much. Which, by the way, speaks about what the bigger problem was. And the bigger problem was sacking Tuchel, who literally wanted that.
Yes.
He didn't want too much control. And we had to give it to him, I guess, because we didn't have sporting directors at the time. But that's where it looks a little bit baffling, sacking him that quickly when that was all that you wanted at the start.
I completely agree with that.
Another bigger issue. You hired Poch. You spent 3 months looking for a manager and you hired Pochettino. These are the bigger issues, and it's all led to the butterfly effect of us having to sack him because we underachieved and now we have to look for another coach. So I understand the fans being frustrated that we now have to go into the market again and hold the owners and the directors accountable for that. And that's another one for you, man, who think I'm just sucking off Clear Lake all the time. They deserve to be held accountable for all of these poor managerial decisions. But it still had to be done. The problem is we put ourselves into that situation in the first place where number 1, we sacked Tuchel, and number 2, we hired Pochettino because the manager identification has been crap.
For me, these owners have killed any trust that I had. I have been, I am, you know this, I'm the most patient guy. And my patience is gone. It is gone.
They're on very thin ice with me because at the very least they stuck to their standards, and I like that. Top 4 we should have got, we didn't get, and we clearly could have got it. Carabao Cup, we should have won that, we didn't get it. This guy's talking about I need a contract extension when you barely scraped 6th this season. Have some shame. We've apparently there's reports coming out that the majority of the training injuries come down to his staff, which again was pretty evident based on his time at PSG and Tottenham as well. So like I'm not surprised that we had to get rid of him. It's just the problem is you hired him.
But this is the thing, right? So you talk about standards, and I agree with you to an extent, because Chelsea should have high standards. We shouldn't be expecting 6th place. But then it comes down to circumstance and just looking at what we've been through. And I'm not saying Poch has been perfect. He's had some shocking games. But for me, when you're working with a shocking situation, you deserve a little bit more time because of that. The injury record, the lack of quality in the squad that was available because of the injuries, the bums upstairs that you have to work with, the owners that don't care, try and dictate everything that you do. And then we talk about standards again. How did dictate what players are coming in and out? So I'm talking about the transfers when I talk about
But they wanted a manager who has a say in transfers. It's just this guy was probably pushing too much.
Why would you have a say and not push for something? If you really believe in it, then you've got to put it out there.
No, but like if we compare it to other clubs, for example, like Jurgen Klopp would ask for profiles, and Michael Edwards would bring him the players. Like this guy wanted Julian Brandt and Goetze over Salah and Mane. The same thing with Real Madrid. You go up to them, you get profiles, and they come and they give you the players. I promise you, whoever was Madrid manager at the time was not scouting Vinicius. No, he got given Vinicius.
I agree with you, but I don't think it's just about players coming in. I think it's the players going out, and that's the problem. It's not even about spending money. It's about keeping what you have together. If we didn't... Look, I said this with Charlie a number of times.
But what players? Like Chalobah, I understand. I wouldn't mind keeping Chalobah.
And Gallagher. But I'm not saying... Personally, I'm not Gallagher's biggest fan. But if you're going to back a manager, you've got to give him the players. And if you're taking away his best assets, in his mind, then you're stripping him of everything he wants to do with the team.
Gallagher is meant to be one of your best assets in the team.
Well, he's played the most minutes, Lewis.
Yeah.
That's my point.
Yeah, doomed from the start, bro. Because when everybody is fit, there is no way Gallagher should be making that 11. So if that's meant to be your big guy for next season as well, it's not like we're talking about the season coming, like Poch is still here, and Gallagher's got another year left on his contract. No, he's likely going in the summer, so like, who cares? He's not going to start for us next season anyway. Chalobah, like, he actually provides you experience. He actually provides you consistent football. I'd actually wouldn't mind keeping him, and I think he's valued at a lot less than what Gallagher's at.
Especially when we look at the defensive struggles we've had. I mean, you take Chalobah out of the squad in terms of centre-backs, you've got Fofana, Colwell, Disassi, and, well, Silva's gone, and I'm missing one, Badiashile. I mean, fucking hell, mate.
I mean, like, I don't think they're bad centre-backs.
No, I'm not saying they're bad, but they don't have the experience. They really don't have the experience.
They also didn't have the structure this season, and that's been the bigger problem when it comes to centre-backs.
No, that's an absolutely fair point. I'm almost talking about next season when I speak about centre-backs, and that's why Chalobah is such a priority for me, because of his versatility. When I hear 25 million being thrown around, honestly, mate, I've been... I cannot tell you how disappointed I am with this ownership group. I can't speak for Bowley because Bowley doesn't have the biggest stake. So we know Egbali was in that meeting, the directors were in that meeting, Lawrence Stewart, Paul Stanley.
Yeah.
In my mind, the data that they came out with, and this is, look, we're going on what we've been told, that's all I can work with. He's talking about chances missed from strikers, not capitalising on set pieces enough. This is fucking embarrassing, Lewis. It's embarrassing.
The chances missed, I agree with you.
No.
I agree with you on that. That comes down to the players. Yeah, but the set pieces, who didn't want a set piece coach? And who said they could handle it themselves? And then our set pieces have gone down the toilet this season. It's the manager. Apparently another reason, I saw it in the Athletic article from yesterday, was that he didn't want the new set-piece coach that we were bringing in, even though our set-pieces have failed. Are you kidding me?
Well, I can't disagree with that.
That's another one, including the contract extension, including the fact that he failed all the targets.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not surprised that we got rid of him. Again, the bigger indictment is that you hired him. That's my problem, and sacking Tuchel.
So let's look forward a little bit. Let's look forward, because ultimately we disagree. We're going to have to agree to disagree. I think sacking Poch was a fucking disgrace, and I think the owners need to be held accountable. And I absolutely empathise with fans who want to come here and protest, because it's not the fact that they sacked Poch, it's the fact that they sacked Poch, and now they're looking at championship level managers. And for me, as a Chelsea fan, I find that embarrassing. I think it's a disgrace, and I think our standards are in the bin, and ultimately they're looking for a yes man.
I think yes man's another buzzword, because they're just asking for somebody who's not going to demand too much in trust.
That's a yes man, Lewis. That is a yes man.
All the other top clubs operate, like we said with Liverpool, like we said with Real Madrid. These men don't come to you with a list of players and say, get me this lot. They ask for profiles. So that's not necessarily a yes man, it's a buzzword. But I understand in terms of the managers that we're looking at, there's risks everywhere. But to me, it was a damned if you do, damned if you don't situation, because I got no faith in Pochettino. I don't really have a lot of faith in the likes of McKenna, Enzo Maresca as well. Like, I know, what's his name? McKenna does play good football and everything, but it's a big step up. Going from Ipswich, who have only just got promoted, to managing a Premier League team, let alone a Premier League team on the level of Chelsea. So I understand fans not being too keen on that one. For me, ideally, I would have gone for Michel Sanchez, because he's done a good job at Girona, Hoeneß from Stuttgart, De Zerbi, or wheel back Tommy Tuchel. Easiest tap-in you could ever have in terms of PR.
This goes back to the owners, though, and the managers won't accept this job if they don't get given a degree. Look, they're not asking for the world here. I don't know what they're asking for, but you would expect, as a manager, if you were a manager, you would say, listen, I need to have some sort of idea what's going on. You can't just dictate everything and I roll with the punches. Yeah, otherwise, you might as well be at a fucking relegation club.
I agree, but I believe that's what they're asking for. They're asking for a manager who's just going to have a say, not one who's just going to keep their mouth shut.
I don't know.
And even then, keep their mouth shut. Poch was ripping the directors in the last 5-6 weeks, and that's probably another factor why they got rid of him.
Rightly so, in my opinion. Rightly so. I think these
directors.
directors.
I didn't mind it, to be honest, but it's like, to me, just two villains arguing against each other. Like, you're all in the wrong.
Do you think the directors are good enough?
No, and I barely even trust them with this one. But it's like, I have to, and you had better get it right. Because I have no faith in Pochettino at all. So we're in a position where I have to hope these directors can pull their finger out their arse. At least this time, they've specified that they're looking for a possession-based manager. And that gives me a little bit of confidence.
Why are they looking at McKenna then, Lewis? McKenna's not a possession-based manager.
McKenna dominates possession, but in a range of different ways. Long passes, short passes, all of them.
Their average possession was like mid in terms of the championship. I think it was like 8th.
Mid for short, medium and long-term passing, because they play in variation. That's the difference. But that's why I'm saying it's a bit more of a positive that at least they're picking someone who has a certain style of play. Because last season, when we were looking at managers, it was a bunch of different managers who played a bunch of different styles of play, and it's like, what are you looking for? At least now I know what you're looking for, but you have to pick the right one. You cannot fuck up again. You cannot.
No, Lewis.
And I know I don't have a lot of faith in it either, but
they're bums, mate. They're bums. Lawrence Stewart, Paul Stanley. Look, it's not personal when I say this. I don't mean it in a personal way, but from a football perspective, they are clueless. Or maybe
they're clueless when it comes to manager ID. When it comes to players, I think bar Sanchez and to a point Mudryk, we haven't really missed. This team could have got 4th. This team could have got a Carabao Cup, and then we would have made additions this summer. So I don't really have too many problems on the player front. It's the manager problem. I don't get what they've been doing in terms of searching for managers, but
when you talk about quality of players, though, Lewis, this is where I agree with you, and there's two parts to this. The quality of the players they bring in is not the issue. It's the experience of the players, because you need to have a balance. If you have all these young players, that is exactly why you have fans that are going out and well, I will say they are accepting 6th place, because they understand that these players are young, they've never played in this league, they've never played together, and they've never played at such a big club. And ultimately, that's going to take more than a season. And that is also part of the reason why a lot of these fans are unhappy with Poch, because he's built a connection with these players. Not the fan base, we can agree with that. But the players are the ones that are on the pitch. If you've got a happy dressing room after a season like this, then I think that, genuinely speaking, I do think things will get better. But all of that progress that we made, all the relationships that were built inside the club, it's gone to shit, mate.
In what?
And that's on the owners, that's on the directors.
In what sense? Because, like, if we're talking about Poch leaving and everyone being depressed about it, like, mourn all you want, but welcome to Chelsea. Managers get sacked, especially when they underachieve. Like, get over it.
Does this not also go with what I'm saying about the owners? They said that they were going to have a process and trust in their manager. They fucked up with Potter, they fucked up with Lampard, and that's 3 strikes and you're out, as far as I'm concerned, with Pochettino.
Like, isn't just the manager, it's also just the players. And with the players, the process is to a point processing, because we did miss our targets, and that is a waste of a season. But I see where we're going.
That's not a long-term process, Lewis.
In terms of the manager, again, that's where the problem has been. And I understand we should not be going into the manager market again for another manager. I even get the argument with players potentially adapting to the Prem. But they did not get given the best climate to succeed in, because our structure was pants for 80% of the season. If we had a good structure, we would have been playing better football, and then you look at the individuals. But the structure wasn't there. So the players can't be judged, yet these players have been getting ripped for 80% of the season. They're the ones that have been getting ripped apart, but in reality, they've been doomed to fail because of that structure.
I agree with the environment part of it, because of the fact that a lot of these players haven't played for Chelsea, and the fact that they haven't played together or under the manager, etc. When you talk about structure, this goes back to fucking process, mate. I hate that word, because the manager needs to get used to them as well, and that for me that's why I find it frustrating, because everyone talks about how good our pre-season was. But look at the players that we utilised in pre-season, and look at what we had available in the league. Our key players in pre-season were Chukwuemeka and Nkunku. There was no Palmer. There was no Caicedo. A lot of different players came in, and then a lot of injuries.
But better players came in.
Oh, absolutely, and I'm not criticising that. But I'm just saying that the way we set up in pre-season, when people use that excuse, I find it very, very difficult to understand, because a lot of our best players, especially up top, mate, They became injured so early. Chukwuemeka got injured against West Ham, and I think Nkunku was out in pre-season as well.
My biggest problem wasn't even necessarily up front, it's the midfield. And this is why I'm not really listening to the injury argument, because you have Enzo playing second striker, left wing shifts. You have Caicedo being forced to defend yards of space by himself. I'm seeing Gallagher get played on the wing when you have options like Madueke, when you have options like Mudryk on the bench, actual wingers. I see Palmer being played false 9. I see Disasi at right back when Gusto's fit. I see Chilwell left wing. I see Colwell left back. Like, this is...
I do agree with that.
So, like, they were doomed to fail again because you're misprofiling the players.
I would agree with that, especially with Enzo, actually. And I think Enzo's one of the few players that never really clicked on a Poch.
The most goals in Premier League history for a Chelsea side.
Yeah. But when you say misprofiling, I would also say that we ended up fixing a lot of those problems. And that is what gave me even more hope going into the new season, that I'd be excited. And...
that's what showed me that these players did have the quality, and they've been let down by the coach for too long.
That's a fair point, man. That is a fair point. Let us know if you agree with that, guys, because it is a good point.
But that's why I can't knock them down for sacking him. It's just I can knock you down for hiring him. You wasted a year. We could have got 4th. We could have had a trophy, and then everyone's happy, everyone's smiling. The process is processing. We'll be confident for next season. But no, now it's all uncertain because we have to go back into the manager market. This is where you can get at the owners and the directors. Hiring Poch, sacking Tuchel, because that's what's caused the butterfly effect to where we are right now.
I mean, if we had a similar season next season to this season, how would you describe that?
You got to contextualize it. That's the thing. Like, I heard a lot of people have been saying this to me as well. I want to see what you're like with the next manager. What are you going to say if the next manager struggles as well? Brother, tell me when we play the football so I can analyse the football. Then we can talk about it. People want to just act like they're Nostradamus and just figure out, we're going to finish 10th again next season. You scaremongers. Let's see what happens and then call it as we see it. I will back whoever walks in the door the same way I backed Pochettino when he first walked through the door. If it's even one of the championship managers, which, I mean, I kind of hope not. But
oh, fucking hell,
me too.
But we're being linked with these guys. That's the scary thing.
Being linked with others as well. But if you're being linked with them, they're the inexperienced ones. They're the ones that you might actually have to give a little bit of time to as well, but they won't want to hear it. So I don't know. I can't tell you because I don't know who's walking in the door. I don't know who we're bringing in the summer. Yeah. I don't know what next season's going to bring.
What will frustrate me so much is if we do bring in a top striker and if we do bring in some experience, that will frustrate the hell out of me. Because then I was like, everything you were arguing about with Poch, yeah, maybe Gallagher, whatever it is, it might have been for nothing in the end and we could have kept the guy. But they've got rid of him early doors. Listen, it's over. There's no point dwelling on it too much. But whoever comes in needs to be backed. I think these players need quality around them. They need experience, whether that's a top striker. I think we definitely need top defenders as well.
Apparently we're linked to both in the left back.
Yeah. So, I mean, Links is great. We need to see what happens. I was certainly optimistic going into the season. I feel like that optimism brought me back down to reality eventually. So that's why I can look back on the season and I'm not happy with it. But I also don't feel like it's a complete failure. We've still got European football. But I just don't see how we can progress under a new manager without investing heavily. But then we're going to have to sell players. And ultimately, I think actually the players that we get rid of are going to affect the squad just as much as the ones we bring in.
Depends on the players that go. Like, I think only really Chalobah would hurt us in terms of all the players that are actually linked.
That's a big one, though.
Yeah, I understand that one too, but you got to get the right centre-back if that's the case. Striker, like, I get we could have got one last season, but we really couldn't have. The ones that we were linked with weren't available to us at that time. Like, even the likes of Sesko, who I don't want, I think was already going to Leipzig at that time. Tony had the ban. Osimhen had 2 years left on his contract. Napoli weren't selling him. Straight off a title-winning season. That's it. So we weren't going to get any of those options. Our team should be getting stronger. The manager, we'll see what happens because it depends on what manager comes in. But these inexperienced players will now have a year's worth of experience under their belts, especially working together. So we will see. We will see. It's uncertain, but I can't lie, it's a little bit exciting for me just because I'll be real, I'm glad Pochettino's gone. I had no faith in that brother from at least December onwards.
Even if you were right, if we would have known this after 2 seasons, I could shake your hand and I can go, you know what, he wasn't good enough. Because of the fact that...
Wasted 2 seasons.
Yeah, but at least you know that there actually is a process. Now you know that the process is bullshit, mate.
How?
How? Because they fucking sacked him after a season.
If the process was BS, we'd overhaul the entire squad again.
Nah, they wouldn't. They care about money, mate. They wouldn't do that.
How? You could still be able to recoup certain amounts of money for a lot of them, bar maybe Enzo, Mudryk, maybe Caicedo.
You believe
Caicedo, you'd still get a good amount.
You believe that these owners have a genuine process and don't just care about their pockets?
Yeah, like the process. Like I think you're looking at process simply from the manager. I'm looking at it
I'm looking at it in terms of where we're going, where we're moving as a club. What direction are we going? If we finish 6th this year, we're going to get top 4 next year.
Team together and let them grow and understand each other with the right manager. The problem is we haven't centered the right manager, but clearly the players are a big part of that process. And the players have quality about them, bar obviously Mudryk, potentially Sanchez. The rest of them all have quality together. And they'll continue to grow, and we're getting in the likes of Esteval, Willian, there's potentially Amari Hutchinson, Andre Santos coming back, potentially a bunch of others as well, and we should be adding experience this summer. So I understand it from a player perspective. So there is a process, it's just the manager. That's the question mark, because they can't get the manager correct.
Yeah. So we'll sort of conclude it here, but who we bring in, we've got these experienced names flying about, your Mourinho's, your Tuchels, your Hansi Flicks, etc. A lot of Chelsea fans would probably understand if we brought those managers in and maybe even empathise with the ownership, although I still personally think we should have kept Poch regardless, but that's a different conversation. Or we could end up bringing in 2 former championship managers with McKenna and the Leicester manager. What's his name?
It's not just them though, Maresca. But there is De Zerbi, we are linked heavily with Hoeneß. Michel Sanchez, there's options there, but I don't know if we pursued him yet. So it's not just the championship, man. Just like worst case scenario.
Yeah, okay, that's fair. But if we end up getting one of these managers in, I think it's a disaster, man. I really do think it's a disaster because they're learning on the job just as much as these players. How are they supposed to teach the players how to thrive in the Prem? They've never even fucking managed a game in the Prem.
I think De Zerbi would get a lot out of our midfield and attack. I think his defensive metrics were better than the way it looks on paper.
He's certainly a very good manager. I'm not doubting that. But in terms of the reasons Pochettino left, being demanding, the reason he left Brighton, doesn't seem like a natural fit. Playing style, yeah, that's great. I don't know, mate.
In terms of being demanding, Brighton's a different club to Chelsea. That's what we got to understand. We aren't a feeder club like Brighton are, respectfully. Brighton literally wheel out players just to sell them on. We think that that's the idea with Chelsea, but I don't necessarily believe that. I actually think we're trying to build Chelsea to be a little bit successful, and we have better players that he can work with. So I don't know if that would be such a problem with him. Obviously, it remains to be seen if he even joins us, but I think comparing him falling out with Brighton coaches to Chelsea is different. Like, he got Brian cooking last season, then they sold 3 of his best players, just like that. Yeah. And then he struggled. He had injuries with Europe. And that's the bigger problem. Injuries when you're playing 2-3 games a week, that will kill your team. That will stretch it. When you're doing 1 game a week, sorry, no. Only to a point. That's a minor problem.
Listen, I'm not doubting that there's good managers out there. I just think the timing of it, I think the circumstances that we've had, and I think the reasoning for the sacking, that's why any of these other managers for me are not an upgrade. I have to admit that. Me personally, I think these owners have proved to a lot of fans, I know not you yet, I think you will actually wake up to it, especially if they bring in one of these championship managers, that there is no ambition, there is not a drive to really succeed, and ultimately it's about growing revenue, it's about making more money.
You really think so there's no ambition from us?
Ambition to make money, yes. Ambition to go and push for trophies,
if there was no ambition, Poch would still be here, personally, because we just pretend 6th was something big and give him the extension.
I don't think it was big, but I think it was a step in the right direction. See, that's what makes me angry.
That wasn't enough for their standards, so what are we talking about ambition?
Then they're delusional. Ambitious. That's what I think.
You can argue about them being delusional, that's fine. I won't even try to argue you down with that, because with some of the decisions they've made, they don't deserve that sort of faith. But I do believe they have standards, I do believe they have some sort of ambition, and I think sacking Pochettino is just one example of that. I can't question their ambition, I can question their naivety, I can question their decision making when it comes to the manager, but ambition, no. I think they want Chelsea to be a successful club. It's just they haven't really gone the right way about it in the last 2 seasons.
Well, there you go, guys. Hopefully you enjoyed. Lewis and myself, we've got Lewis's channel in the description. Check it out, guys. Carefree Lewis G. Do you agree? Do you think it was the right decision to get rid of Poch, or should we have kept him? And which manager should we bring in next? All the best, guys. See you very soon.